Oops. Oh no, Julie, do you want to log out and come back in? Oh, yeah, that's what she's going to do. I'm gonna, um, okay, so are we all ready? So we'll just give a minute to Julie, who's just gone out and she's coming back. Is everyone ready? Are you going to show me your faces? Be interactive. Can you hear me? Hi, Karen. I'm glad to see someone live. Hi, Julie, you're back. Do you want to unmute yourself and see whether we can hear you?
Yes, it's there. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. Hi, Swati.
Hi.
So, yeah, let's introduce ourselves because we're still waiting. Maybe we'll wait for a minute or two, but I do want to acknowledge and appreciate for those who come on time. So I'm not going to wait too long before we get started. So do you want to introduce yourself and then how do you find this week's module? Is there anything that you just didn't understand or challenging? Because one of the main thing that I really want to discuss today is the DISC, because that's what a lot of people have shared, the DISC module and whether you agree or not agree, or you're surprised or not surprised. So I thought I can give you more insights on not that we are not driven by what we are strong at, but how we can actually choose to use this energy in different situations. So I'm just going to give you some insights and strategies for that. So we have more people joining us. Feel free to unmute yourself and, and what do you call that? Like turn on your camera so we can get to know each other. And please get to know each other because, I've made some really good peers through this kind of connection, like you're attending something and you get to see people with the same energy types and, kind of thing. And you feel like, oh, we looked like, we have the same mindset and mentality or the energy. So you can actually create some lifelong friendships through this type of modules as well. So, okay. So anything that you guys want to share, ask away. But before I do that, I'm gonna share my okay. Can you see the slides? Can you everyone see the slides? Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna see where my chat has gone. Here. It's gone to my third screen, so I'm just gonna leave it there. Hey, Lulu. Okay, so we have a number of people now, so let's get started. So anyone want to have so what I'll do, I'm just gonna, I don't know why I've done that. Okay, acknowledge the country and then we can move forward after that. Okay, so I'm just gonna change this here. Okay, so QUT acknowledges the Turrbal and Yegra as the First Nations owners of the lands where QUT now stands. We pay respect to their elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits. We recognize that these lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning. QUT also acknowledges the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT community. So then we can get started. I'm just going to leave it there first. Okay, anyone? Are you going to talk? Are you going to share? Are you going to ask? You're going to type. Okay, so Karen is typing. So that's good. Anyone else want to share in the meantime? It was really interesting to read, and I have responded to all your introduction messages as well as the messages that you have typed on the discussion panel as well. So I have individually responded to all of you. So sorry that, I did take some time because I do want to really read and understand and see where you're coming from and, respond patiently instead of going like, yep, got it. So any questions, guys? Like, because the only way you learn is like, when you interact. So then it makes it easier. So anyone want to share? I don't know how you pronounce your name. Risti
It's
with the
Christy as
X,
in Christmas. Christy as in Christmas.
so, Christmas, like a
Christmas, yeah, Christy. Yeah,
Christy. Ah,
yeah.
so instead of a C, you actually X. Oh, okay.
Mm.
Do you
And
get
when it comes in a
do you
couple of
get
months'
people
time,
asking you this question all the time?
not always, no. You just say every December they know how to say my name.
Uh, okay, so Christy, got it. I
Yeah.
actually thought, but then I don't want to assume that. So it's good. Thank you. So anything
But
you want to share?
it's interesting because in my previous job, they were sending all the engineers off. I was working with BMD and on a joint venture,
Mhm.
and all the engineers were getting sent off, and they were doing the disc sessions, so they were all excited. They were learning about themselves. But when I got my result, it's sort of more or less tied in with what I've sort of done before type stuff, and sort of knowing sort of a bit more aware of my own sort of personality as it was. It sort of came in with it.
Yeah.
And the actual like the short sentence describing me, I thought I love this. It's me to it. It's me to a T.
Yeah,
And yeah.
that's nice. So anyone else had any challenge with this week's module, like anything that I shared that you disagree or you want to have more insights or understanding? Is there anything anyone else want to ask or share? I know Karen is busy typing away, I hope. No?
I actually haven't looked at the week one content yet. But I have done this thing for a different reason, like for the student leaders sort of stuff. Um, when they told about this, I was like, like how MBTI
You're
feels
breaking.
a bit like one of those things as well.
Yeah.
And like my personal opinion is, while we can have like that we are more like, there's gonna be a bit of everything, and it's gonna be very blurred. Like you can't really take just the description for. So for example, like my one was S. So like
Mm.
I can't just take that and then say, oh yeah, I'm always that. Like sometimes I might be like this, sometimes I might be like that.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on it. Yeah.
That's nice. That's a great, self-awareness in itself. So Karen also so shared that I thought that this thing was entertaining. My influence was only 2%, but the others were relatively equal. So basically, I'm fairly balanced, but feel the inability to lack influence. Okay. So this is where I really want to get started. See, remember, when it comes to DISC, it's an energy type. It's not a personality type. There are other Myers-Briggs, the kind of tests they do where they actually spell out your personality. This is who you are. This is how you behave, kind of thing. But whereas this is energy type, we all have all the energies within us. It is, first thing is when you do this type of test, what kind of hat are you wearing? Like, if I'm wearing my mother's hat, my energy is different. If I'm wearing my work hat, my energy is different. If I'm wearing my HDR hat, my energy is different. So it is really what hat you're wearing when you're answering these questions, what situation you are in, and what environment you're sitting in. So that makes a difference in the responses you get as well. Then the other thing is, this energy type, what it reveals is what you're comfortable with, and or it also reveals what you're natural at. So there are some people who might say, I don't feel comfortable being in the dominant space, but that doesn't mean you're not, just because you're not comfortable. It is a matter of what you're naturally, display as, so like who the person, the kind of energy that you display could be dominant, could be influence. Sometimes people they have a great social life. They think they are influencers, like, they think they can mix, they can socialize, they can be with people. They can be comfortable doing that, but naturally they can only do that if they have people they're comfortable with. So Influencers are people who could just walk into a conference or any setting where they can just go and talk to strangers. These are people who can actually make that social impact and the social connection where it comes naturally for them. But people who do socialize with only friends, with their own cliques or own family, that doesn't mean they are naturally influencers. You get what I mean? So this is where the differences are. So let's look at each module, because I know when it comes to dominant, people think it's a negative, like, I'm not a dominant person. Sometimes I do get my clients, saying that, oh, I'm not dominant. It's not dominant means you're ruling others and you're telling people and, that kind of thing. But you do have the qualities of being like a result orientated. So that means whatever you want to do, you're already thinking about the results. So people who are running businesses and people who are in the leadership position, like the CEOs, they don't do the job, but they're sitting up there doing the strategy, creating the strategy on how they want to achieve the outcome, the results. And so they're very outcome driven, very results orientated. When I started my businesses, I have 2 businesses. And when I started that, I was like very low on my dominance. Now I was made to feel that, okay, you don't even have the D energy. How are you going to run the business, kind of thing. But then what I did is it's like I started playing with it. Like I started playing what is the energy. So I got to understand that the strengths are they're result orientated, they take the risk, they're self-started starters. That means they don't need instructions. They don't need people to tell them what to do. Because when you're doing your HDR, like if are you all HDR, or like are there any ECRs or early career people in this group? All HDRs? 6 thinking hat.
I'm
Everybody
HDR, but I'm late career.
or master students, yeah? So what happens is, so when I'm wearing my PhD hat and sitting in front of my supervisors, I'm definitely not going to be the one who's going to take the risk. I'm definitely not going to be the one who's going to go, I'm self-starter, just don't tell me what to do. I can do whatever I want to do, so I won't. But then I do display that, I'm determined to get it done. I'm more, I'm efficient in what I'm doing. I'm assertive in what I believe that I want to write about, So there are some characteristics that come, but there are some that I have to underplay and then use the other like the compliance maybe. So the limitations, when you look at the dominant people, like, people who have high dominance, while there's so many positive traits there, the limitations, I'm not saying it's negative traits, the limitation is sometimes you can tend to be impatient because you're so result oriented and so much on that, outcome driven and so competitive sometimes. What happens is you tend to become impatient. We tend to control the situation. Sometimes even when it's beyond our control, we want to control. And when we can't control, then we get so agitated by it and frustrated by it. So this is where the limitations come with people who have high dominant energy. So, and also sometimes it's lack of consideration. Some people, I'm not saying everyone, because lack of consideration means like, if I want to get this done and I think this is the direction that you should go, I'm not going to consider your views. I'm not going to consider your perspectives. I'm just going to do it this way. So then it can be a limiting factor as well. There are students in my knowledge and with the people I've discussed, there are students who do not agree with the supervisors, who fight their way through. They become like so authoritative where I'm the expert, I know what I'm writing about, this is my interest, this is my passion, and this is what I want to do. So they don't take feedback. They don't listen to what the supervisors are saying. So sometimes when they play these limitations too high, the supervisors tend to pull back and then go like, yeah, do. How many people have dropped out after confirmation because they just become so much on that limiting factor that they're not considering that, the listening and compliance and having that trust, because, that's where the S energy people, they put their trust on. So I'll give you a good example. In an office environment, this is like an example where, let's say, the boss comes and tell you, just for you to understand the context of it all. When the boss come and tell this group of people and say, like, I did that in one of the exercises when I ran a seminar, where I kind of divided the group where the D energies and the I and the S and the C, right? 4 groups. So I gave them this task. I said, we're going to have this event that is in like this time next week. We're going to have this big event. We're expecting about 150 people. We are also expecting them to bring their families. So it's going to be like a big bonding event with staff, with their family, right? And I said, okay, so I want you to go and plan this event, and then we'll talk about it in half an hour. What do you think the D energy people would have done? That means I'm getting them to look at, catering, venue booking, everything to do with the event. So what do you think the D energy people would do? Any idea? Anyone wants to give it a go? You can unmute yourself, you can type. You just love listening to me, don't you? You're a very quiet bunch of people. Say they are Roman citizen here. Fight for control. Yeah, okay. I would allocate task. Yeah, Julie, you got that. So what happens is the D energy people came back and they said they created subheads, so they got this person in charge to do the catering. They got this person to do all the venue booking and everything. And they got that person to arrange for entertainment. And so they kind of delegated everything to someone to run it. So they took the supervisor's role. They go like, okay, so everyone go and do this, and then in 24 hours, report back to me and I want to see the progress. So they didn't do anything. They just created a strategy, allocated people to go and do it, and delegated that the jobs. D energy. What do you think the I energy did? I energy people. Any idea? Do it all themselves for the recognition? Maybe, but you know what? Most of that half an hour that I gave them, about 20 minutes, they were just enjoying the company of each other. They were laughing, they were joking, they were going like, why don't we have some music? Why don't we invite this person? Why don't we create this band? And then they were looking at the entertainment factor and how they can do what about the dance, so we can have a space for dancing. And they didn't think about the venue, but they all went into the music, the party, and the drinks after, so they looked at all the fun, the social, the connection. It was all about like who they want to invite and can they bring a friend along if they don't have family? So this is what they were thinking about. It was so amazing. It was like, I could see 20 minutes of laughter. And then the last 10 minutes, they got, yeah, let's do this, so let's get these things and let's get music, let's do, right? So that's what they came back with. Now, anyone want to give a go with the S energy people? S energy. What do you think S energy people group would have thought, would have paid attention to? Oh, no, not yet, Shun Singh. I will go through them individually. I'm just giving the overall picture now. Okay, right. So the S energy people, what they did was purely thinking about food, because they are the mother, father, the parents, that kind of mindset. They look after people. They go for the trust base, traditions. So they look at, okay, what food? So do we need to consider gluten-free? Which caterer can we, sign up with? And do you think they will offer dairy-free cater, all the dietary requirements? How do we handle the kids? What food will actually entice the kids to have more of, so what do we need to consider for the kids? And can we trust this caterer? Have anyone else has used this caterer before? And if no one has used it, then no, I'm not going to take the risk to do that. So let's go with someone that's recommended by someone because someone has used it. You see how they're thinking? This is what they just came back half an hour later, only talked about this. Then comes the C energy. Interestingly enough, right? They didn't think about the whole the social, who to invite, what to feed them with and everything. They thought about the venue. Where can we book? What regulations do they have? What are the policies that we need to follow and adhere? What's the protocol that we need to follow? And how do we apply for it? How do we make sure that if there's anything happens, what's that emergency plan? And if, let's say, if it rains, do we have a backup? And where do we go from there? And how do we book that as a backup? So they were looking at all the rules, the regulations, the protocol, the procedures, the policies, and what can be done and can't be done. So this is the strength of all these categories, right? Like the different energy types. So what happened is when I put them together, when they were talking, when they were just coming sharing it, and they just realized, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of these? And then the D energy was just sitting there. I thought about everything, but I wasn't going to do it. Like, I was just going to get the respective people. But then the respective people have to have that energy to do it too. So the person who's organizing catering need to have a bit of an S energy. So this is how we learn about the different energy types. So even when you go home and talk to your family, you will see if you have, your partners or your parents or your siblings or your children, you will see they may have different energy types. And that's why sometimes when you are talking to them, it's just going on deaf ears because you're not turning on what you want them to listen to. Does it make sense? And the same thing that happens with your supervisors as well. So with your supervisors, if let's say they sound more like, okay, did you check with the admin? Did you check with GRC? Did you make sure that, this can be done? Kind of thing, you can see that there's more, the C energy comes through, right? But then there are also people where they're very dominant type of people. They'll go like, you know what? You should do that. And how long are you going to take it? I want something done by next week and send me the draft, so you can see that they're very directional. They have created a strategy for how you're going to do a mixed method. Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? So they've done all that planning as well. And they ask you questions, but they already have a plan. So you can see the D energy coming through. So as I'm equal for this, does cause the energies to both work together and then with havoc, but then conflict in relation to priorities? It can, because you know why? Now that you become aware of, you need to know when to play what. So that's what I want you guys to understand. That's why this week is about self-awareness. Everyone has got all four energies. And so what I have personally done, your knuckle, the four knuckles. So it is like I have D-I-S-C. So sometimes I anchor them, like, it's just like, I go like, that's my D, that's my. So sometimes in situations when I'm playing too much D and I'll go like, okay, Santha, this is not the time. Supervisors meeting, no D energy, go back into compliance, go back into trust. You need to trust what they're saying. You need to have this social connection with them too, kind of thing. So there are times that I have coffee with my supervisors, purely social. There are times that I just want to listen to what they're saying, compliant, just listen to what's needed, what I need to hear and how I need to present it. So there are times where they make me like, if I want to present at a conference and this is what I'm comfortable with, I use. So I become aware at what part of the conversation, what energy I'm playing. Because we can't make them change, right? Hey, can you do this S now? Kind of thing. We can't tell whoever you're talking to, but you can tell yourself, okay, that's too much. You can see how people are not connecting with you if you're doing too much of one thing. That means if you're talking about admin, you can see people switch off. When you talk about so many rules and so many, protocols or procedures, they switch off. They're not listening. Can you send me an email? Because they're just not going to register it because it's not their energy at this point. So that's where because you're aware of it now, you can learn how to use it appropriately and relevant to the situation that you're in. Does that make sense? Can't see your faces, most of you, and you're not typing. So, so this is the dominant one, right? We talked about. So now think about the example that I gave for the event, okay? So now look at the influence people. They're energetic, they're enthusiastic, they're optimistic, they're very persuasive as well. They love collaboration, they love to be sociable, they're creative. Like, when I think about, like event, and I'm thinking about, okay, let's do this is the last thing on my list could be music, right? So, and then they become more creative. Like, what can we decorate the room with? How can we get, so the creative side of things they think really well. So sometimes, when you're working in teamwork, sometimes you might want to have this type of energy people. Sometimes I have my writing group where I have different energy types, and it's interesting because, why we kind of make a call to each other. Like, if I have too much of a scene, I'm kind, what, you're focusing so much on that in the minute things. So now look at the bigger picture. So I influence her on that. And then she'll influence her. Santa, you're forgetting this minute, this small point. So maybe you need to focus on this. So we kind of complement each other. So sometimes that's also important who your study mates and, people are. So they are not clashing too much as well. But the thing with the influence, the limitations, as I said, it's not negative traits, but the limitation is they can get impulsive because there's so much of the fun, energy, and enthusiasm, they can get impulsive. They make decisions quickly, and I'll give you another example afterwards, but this is, and they can become disorganized, and I said, I gave them half an hour, 20 minutes, they're just having fun. They're getting to know each other. They're having fun. It's just like, do you do that? Oh, where do you come from? So they're doing all that when I've given them a task. So they become disorganized. So they took them only 10 minutes to just come up with something because they're having too much fun. And they can become emotional as well because they're so driven by the social factors and the society. So when they don't get that attention that they're seeking for, they can get emotional. So they can get like, oh, why aren't they including me in that group? Why didn't they invite me to that event? Kind of thing. So they can get emotional. And they can also become reactive because they because they're impulsive, they can actually react and they can say things that they may regret as well. So people who are highly sociable and highly, persuasive, always you can see them with someone and not alone. And so they can have these type of limitations as well. Please stop me and ask any questions if you have. And the steadiness. So this is where they are very good listeners. These are people, if you look at the archetype, they are very much like the mother character, right? They're good listeners. They're predictable because you automatically know what they're going to do, what they're going to say, like you kind of like you can foresee, like, I can see that, okay, now I know what she's going to say now, kind of thing. So they're very predictable. They're very understanding as well because they're so concerned about your welfare. So sometimes they are very understanding, they're helpful, they're team player, they're very supportive, and they can be very dependable. You can trust them because they go by trust. So they actually you can relate with them with trust as well. And they're very cooperative because they want to make sure that you're happy. But the thing is that the limitations is they can be cautious, the slow to change, it is more like they make decisions very slowly. Like it is more like they can't make up their mind because they have to measure whether I can trust or not. There's a lot of things they have to work with. They're very possessive. That means if they're, if let's say you are their friend, they're very possessive of your welfare and who you're mixing with, or are you distracted too much, or they become very possessive. And they're also very conforming. So that means they don't challenge you. So that if you ask them to do something, they'll go like, yeah, because I trust you, whatever you say, I'll do it. So they don't challenge. So sometimes that could be a limitation as well. Does that make sense? Cool. And the last one is compliant. So the compliant people are like, the archetype for this type of people are like the accountants, right? They need to be accurate. They have to be analytical. They have, they need to be conscientious. Everything need to follow some sort of a procedure. They have very high standards. They have attention to quality and details, and they're very data oriented. So, hey, when you are doing your data collection, you need to have this C. You can't say, I'm weak in my C, I can't do this. No, you still need to tap onto that and go like, you know what, I need that, I need that. So you need to look at who are the people who have that quality and how they function, what they're doing. So that's how I did, because I'm not like all four when I knew about this. So when I started practicing, I actually went out to like, you know what, today I'm going to apply this energy and I want to see how I feel, there are times that I felt very uncomfortable, but then sometimes, I remember a different phase of my life. Like, let me finish this. The limitations they're critical because they're attention to quality, they're judgmental, they're indecisive because if they don't get enough data, if they don't have enough evidence, they just cannot make up their mind. And they overanalyze everything as well. So this is the limitations they have. I have had in different phases of my life, when I have done this test, I have the results were amazing, right? I come from Singapore. That was where I was born and brought up, So I moved here about 30 years ago, but I was born in Singapore. In Singapore, everything is to do with the rules, right? If you litter, you have to pay fine. If you cannot go here, you cannot enter here. That's everywhere you will see rules. I was really surprised when I moved to Australia. It's just like I'm really looking at the bus, like, is there any rules here? No drinks or no, that kind of thing. But in Singapore, everywhere you go, there are rules. There's always boards of rules everywhere you go. School, and there's rules at home, rules at schools, and punishments and any kind of mistakes you do, you get punishment. We are always taught, like, if you do this, you're in trouble. If you don't do this, you're in trouble. That kind of very much. So when I was brought up in that kind of environment, my energy type was so high on the sea. I was highly on the sea energy. Not that I'm comfortable, but that's what I had to be. So it was something that came naturally because it was like instilled in me. So it was like the natural energy that I had to play. So at work or at home, at school, everywhere. So my high energy was C. D was nowhere to be found because there's no way I can talk against my parents or teachers or school or your work anywhere. Like, you're always the person underneath. So you don't look up to them. You look up to them. I mean, you don't look into their eyes and tell them off. You cannot challenge elder people. There's so many regulations there. So D was just nowhere to be found. S, yeah, because I needed to make sure that I make friends with people who I can trust. So the cautiousness was again instilled. Be careful who you're mixing with. Be careful with her. Be careful with him. That kind of thing. So there was a lot of that happening, right? So I had that in growing up in Singapore. And then when I came here, even I was very difficult because I was always comfortable only in the environment I'm comfortable with people I'm comfortable with. Don't throw me in a strange environment and ask me to go and talk to some stranger, because never talk to the strangers, that kind of upbringing as well. So, oh, there you go. So Swati, I managed to find these results and I'm similar to Karen though my eye is not as low. Okay. And Shun Singh is saying, I met a same congregation in the church. He also born in Singapore. His father is from UK. His mother is from Pakistan. Okay, multicultural background. Okay. I'm Singaporean. Oh, look at how many Singaporeans in this group. Hey, and I'm C only with respect to rules. There you go. You have no other choice. That's a thing in Singapore, right? You have no other choice. And so I'm in Singapore right now. Hey, Lulu, you're in Singapore right now. Enjoy. Go to Little India. And it pained me to be told to throw rubbish on the street in India. Yes, that's the thing. They say that that's their freedom. I was told like that too. So that happens with the type of energy at that time. And then when I came here, I needed to work on my eye because I came and landed in this country with not a single soul. I had somebody at this airport standing with my name card, like, to come and pick me up. And I don't even know who it is. Like, I was brought up in such a way you don't talk to strangers. And here I am getting into a car with a stranger who's driving me to somewhere to live with strange people until I find my own accommodation in a country that I don't know a single person. So I needed to then work on my eye energy. Months later, when I looked at my disc, I realized that my eye energy showed up. Like, who is this person, right? So I realized that how, according to the environment and the situation that I'm placed in, I created that ability to work on the energy types that I wasn't naturally that was instilled in me. So then what happened is, when I became a mother, forget about everything else as energy, because everything is to do with my child, everything is to do with his welfare, everything to do what I feed, how I feed, when I feed, everything is to do with the child. So the natural instinct was the S energy. However, The D energy comes in if I have to look after him. Like if, let's say, if there's any danger that comes towards my child, I'm ready to play the D. Like suddenly I'm this person that I have in total control. I can just demolish everyone else to just protect my child. You know, that energy just comes in as well. So this is how every energy types play a part in your life. So that's what you need to draw upon. Become more aware of it. When you're having a conversation, let's say you're going out with someone and you enjoy an hour or two, and then you come back and reflect on it. What was I playing at that time? Was I so much on the eye laughing and this and that, but not really looking at any detail? Was I critical? Was I judgmental? Was I analyzing too much? Was I looking for evidence there? What was my conversation like? So the more you become aware, the more you are in control of how you're going to play this energy. Does that make sense? So this is how it is. Have you heard of this, the model, this strategy where people who are more visual, people who are more kinesthetic, have you heard of that? Auditory, visual, auditory, kinesthetic? Yeah? I'm just reading this. I read a book written by the father of Singapore. Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? I think he's very great. Yeah. Every outsider of Singapore would know that Singapore is the greatest country to live, but people in Singapore will know what is it like. Trust me on that. So I met an old person in Australia before he worked there, and he said some negative content about him. There is plus and minus, I have to say as well, Shun Singh. He's not like, the God, but yeah, there was a negative aspect of him as well. We can talk about it later, man. Don't stress. Yes, Swati, I'm sure you can relate with me. So this is where you're looking at all the energy types. So when I said, that the VAK, people who are the D energy people, right? They are very much on the visual side of things, okay? So this is how I'm saying. Let's say you go to Athletic Foot. Athletic Foot, I think that's the name, right? Where you buy shoes. They are all trained in this, okay? They're trained, most of the retail people are trained in this model, and they see how you're dressed, and then they know what language they need to speak to you, okay? For example, people who are very much visual, they tend to have more D energy, and because they're very visual, because they're very outcome driven, I said, right? Result driven. So they go to the shoe shop, they will look at the shoe and they'll go, exactly, that's the one I want, I'm buying that. Right? How many of you have done that or know people who have done that? Come on, at least say yes or no. Does anyone here have seen anyone who have done that, or you have done that? Like you will walk into a shop, a shoe shop or a dress, and you look at something, you don't have to try it on, you know that that's it. Yeah, okay, Christy's the only one. What's happening to the others? Have you come across anyone, your friend or your family or yourself? Yeah, okay, it happens, right? Then you have people who are very auditory. Auditory are people who are more into that eye energy, okay? What do? How many of you or know people who have done it, right? You go to the shop, you have this retail person there, salesperson there saying, and you take a dress and go, how do you think it looks on me? This person doesn't even know you, and yet you want their opinion, right? And then what do you do? How many people will go like, if somebody go like, oh my God, this looks so good on you. A stranger might say this color suits you so well. So when they do all that and you're convinced, you're kind of influenced by that, kind of like, oh, I'm getting some social recognition and acknowledgement and somebody's giving me feedback. So you go and you go for it. You kind of like, oh, okay. It just pleases you to hear from people because you are the people person, right? People orientated. So, okay. I've got people who say, I did not do it a lot because I'm very, I know that, right? I just buy the cheap shoe, try to, okay. The S energy, okay? The S and C energy, right? Basically, so that means, okay, I've done the visual auditory. So the kinesthetic people. Kinesthetic people are very much on the S energy. So they need the touch and the feel. So by looking at it, they are not convinced. By somebody saying this will suit you, they're not convinced. They need to wear it or they need to feel it. You know, you like sometimes you go to the shop, you need to feel the material and you go, even though it looks so beautiful and you touch the material and go, oh, that's not the material I want. Because they go for comfort. They go by the fact of, oh, this is comfortable and this fits with me and I trust this brand or I trust this shop or I know people who buy from this shop and they are really happy with that. And therefore I trust that because of, it's recommended by people. So they go for that kinesthetic opinion. Then this thing come, the audio digital. So these are the AD people, not, ADHD kind of thing. This is a different one, right? So this is VAK, then there's an audio digital. These are the people who will look at the price, will look at the shop, they will calculate, they will see whether they can wait for the sales period and whether they can wait until December or wait for some, cyber whatever thing, and then they will buy, and then they will compare prices between shops. They will see whether they can get it from here or there, or should they order online, should they go in person. So for them, the price, the quality, the evidence behind it, they will look at people's reviews as well. It's strangers reviews, not someone you trust reviews. It's like, strangers reviews. So they are very audio digital. I play that sometimes because I'm not going to buy just like that, so I'm not someone who buy impulsive buyer. So I think a lot before I buy. So what happens is people who are the S energy or the C energy, the AD people, they tend to take very long to come to a decision, right? They take like, wait, I don't know whether it's cheaper somewhere. Maybe I should try online. I'm not going to buy it now. Or maybe I should wait for the June sales or the December sales, kind of thing. So you take very long to make decisions. So sometimes this happens when I'm bringing this back to your writing, okay? What happens? You write a chapter draft or a paragraph and your supervisor wants to see your draft and you're not ready to send because you need to think it over, you need to make it perfect, you need to make sure you have everything that they asked for, you have complied everything, you've put in everything and extra, and you need trustworthy sources, you check with others. So there's so many elements you play before sending the draft, which is going to come back with comments anyway, but then you hold back, you kind of procrastinate, not because you naturally, you want to procrastinate, but because this energy is playing up so high that is making you delay what needs to get sent immediately. So the D energy people, done, I've sent my draft. So they can get in trouble with a lot of feedback, but they just go like, okay, I need the outcome. I need to get it done. And they need to, so I've set my goals. I've got to get it done. So this is where you need to play. Am I doing too much of this? Buying shoes is fine. Buying a laptop is fine, but doing your draft, it's not fine. Writing your article, it's not fine. Reading up a book, it's not fine because it's not giving you what you need. So this awareness is also important. Does it make sense, guys? Are you benefiting from this discussion? Give me some idea. Going to shop is tiring because it takes so long. I usually need snacks. Meanwhile, my mom managed to buy a bunch of things a little more quickly. Yeah, that happens as well. I can get Italian shoes cheaper. Ooh, I need to come to you then, Christy. I buy Skechers exclusively because I got it from DFO for $50. I buy Skechers because it's so comfortable. All right, it's so light. That's one thing I like about Skechers. It's so light and comfy. So this is what it is, right? So the D, so then you have this combination, like how many of you like, you go, I'm so D and I didn't realize, kind of thing. So the D and I, so there's combinations of it, right? They're prominent combination. So D and I is outgoing, fast-paced, active, dynamic, and bold. If they come together, the D and I. Not two people coming together. If you are the one person who's got the two energy, right? When you have a D and C, you're task-orientated, you're objective, you're also skeptical, and you're challenging because you're gone below. So you see the top two, it is like it matches easily. But when it comes to this way, the vertical way, it can be challenging as well because you're going right on top of the strategy and then you're right at the bottom where you're looking at details. So we'll be talking about these models of chunking models in the future weeks. But this is where it gets contradicting because you're looking at the bigger picture, but you're also looking at the smaller details. So sometimes it's good for Writing up your thesis is really good. You have the full document, but you also need to look at the details. It's a good combination to have. And then you have C and S, where you have you're reserved, you're thoughtful, you're slow because you're sitting on both ends of, taking time to make decisions. You're methodological and also you're careful. So this is sometimes good when it comes to like, when you're doing your data analysis, because you really need this kind of thing. You cannot be fast with your data analysis. You really need to be a bit of slow paced. You need to be analytical. You need to make sure that you have enough evidence to support what you're finding and things like that, right? So this C and S combination works really well when you're doing your methodology. And the INS is people-oriented, empathizing, receptive, and agreeable. So this is again a mixed version, because in the top and the bottom, so it's a mixed version. It's good, it can be challenging as well. If it's natural, you're great. But if it's not natural, sometimes it can be challenging. But I-energy as a researcher, whether you're a HDR or whether you're an ECR or whichever stage of research journey that you're in, it is important to be aware of this energy, all four, and then think about the examples I've given you about, organizing an event or buying a shoe or a dress, think about all that. Think about the conversations you're having with people. Think about your last meeting with your supervisor. What energy were you playing? How did you feel when you hang up the phone or finish with that meeting or come back home? Do you feel drained or do you feel energetic? Sometimes when you have played something more comfortable with awareness, because you're aware of it, like I'm aware, you feel comfortable with it. And so it gives you the energy to play that energy, right? However, if you have played something that is not, you're not comfortable, and if you're natural at it, that means like you're not comfortable using your D energy, but it just comes naturally, you'll be fine as well, because that's what comes naturally for you, even though you may not enjoy it. Sometimes, where I don't enjoy telling people what to do, but I don't enjoy that. I don't like that, but that's required of me. So I do it, but then I can just feel a bit like, oh, this is just not me, but I got to be doing that, kind of thing. So that's where you have the D and S people, and you have the I and C people, that contradiction. Like you want to do this, but you also have to do that. But there's sometimes when you're playing something that is against your comfort or your natural instincts, that's where you feel drained, where you come back and you feel drained. Sometimes you feel like you had a good time, but then when you come back and you sit in the bed or sit on your couch and you go like, why do I feel like, it's just like, you just feel naked. And what happened there is because you have been playing an energy type that is not natural or not comfortable. So then you feel that you have put on this persona of energy that is just not you, and you're putting too much of effort to play that energy, it drains you. Have you been in that situation? That's me after a conference, so exhausted because it's not me trying to mix. Yeah, there you go, Christy. Spot on. So what you then have to do, you go to the next conference, you walk in there with an I energy. Think about what I energy people go. Like, hey, how are you? How is your flight in? Where do you come from? Which, how's your state? Oh, I've been to Adelaide before. Oh, I've never been to Adelaide. What is it like? So that means you're prepared with these kind of conversations. It's like, what are you researching on? Because sometimes I don't like to start off in conferences like, what's your research about? And then, you talk about research, and not necessarily people are interested in your research already because they don't even know you yet. So sometimes I like to have general conversation. So you go in prepared with that kind of thing. Like, so, oh, you're from Brisbane. Oh, me too. Or, you're from Auckland. Oh my God, I've never been, but I've heard so much. So you're prepared with some kind of conversation. Sometimes it is more like, it's not like preparation. What I mean, it's like, having some sort of like things that you want to have like a opening lines of how you want to get to know people. That explains what happens when I need to do I things. Yeah, that's it. So it is like simple conversations. Sometimes, what I have done, if I want to play D, right? My son actually wanted me to play D once because he wanted me to buy him a Lego, and a very expensive Lego. And he doesn't invest on other toys. Lego was his only toy since birth. Like not since, since he was a toddler. So when he wants that, and he said, "Mom, can you just tap onto your first knuckle?" I said, "Why?" Then she said, "I just want to, I want you to get me something, and I don't want you to think too much. I just want you to touch that one and come, kind of thing." So he even knew what it meant. I was making fast decision. So, and now we're looking for a property, and I'm going to, Chevy, don't make me touch this to buy $1 million property. I have to use all 4 if I need to, kind of thing. So sometimes it's, you end up learning that, this is the energy after. So sometimes when I go for shopping, these days when I'm time poor, I'm absolutely D. I'm not going to sit there, calculate. I'm not going to go like, oh, I'll go here and get, no, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to go this aisle. I'm going to get that, and I'm out, because that's what it is. And so when I'm time poor, I go with my D energy. There are times that I have played with if I see some stranger wearing some beautiful outfit, like, you just see them and it just glows, like it just suits them so well. I would actually walk up to them and say, "I'm sorry, I just wanted to say this suit just looks so good on you. This is like, this is so beautiful. You look so beautiful today." Just within a second, you can see the smile that you're putting on, not only in their face, but in their heart. You can see that no matter how disturbed they are, they immediately smile, and that smile that you have created, it's where I want to be this influencer, kind of thing. So it's not about me gaining something out of it, it's me giving something to people so they are happy with it as well. So that is something that I have done before. So this is what you guys need to be aware of, just mindful of the time as well. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions, like any questions about anything else? Because I've given so much material this week about the model of communication. There's videos there. How many of you watched that video about the dead guy there, and how, we are looking at this person talking, but then there's just so much things have changed and we don't even realize. And they say, have you noticed these 21 things that have changed, while this conversation took place? It's amazing, isn't it? So this is where the DDG, that I find it really interesting, where people delete some things. I'm sure you would find that with your partners and your children, when you tell them to do something that they don't want to do, they delete it and they go like, "No, you never told me that. I never hear you saying that," kind of thing. They distort what you say, or you distort what they are saying. And also you generalize, so sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. But my main purpose of this week's module in emotional intelligence is the self-awareness. It is now becoming, don't over analyze yourself and and critique yourself, but become aware of it. Like, I normally, if I go out and have that conversation, sometimes I reflect my day. By the end of the day, I reflect, like, I spend this many hours with these friends, like, what talking about, and then I kind of recall, did I say that too much? And did I, they didn't even ask me for my advice. Did I give too much? So sometimes I kind of like reflect on it, so sometimes like sometimes now my son also tells me, like, I naturally want to tell people, like, become more aware and give them tips of this and then sometimes, my son say, sometimes you shouldn't be telling them that. You should wait until they ask you. And I say, how do they know what to ask? How do they know what they don't know to ask? So we have these kind of discussions, reflecting on our outing, and then we go like, you were saying something to this uncle, and it's very interesting what he is seeing from our conversation as well. So the perspective, and whether I want to listen to his perspective and whether I should change his perspective. And it's really interesting conversations we're having. And that's the kind of thing that, makes me become more and more aware of what comes out of my mouth, what goes into my head, or what gets out of my head, or what goes into my ears. Everything is within your control. There are things in this world that is beyond our control. Yeah. We cannot control whether it's going to rain or shine. We cannot control a lot of things in our life. But we can control the emotions. We can control how we choose to act or react. So these are things that we can control. And the only way we can control and adapt is when we become aware of it. Does that make sense? Yeah? Any questions? Yeah, I'm glad you've seen it before, but it's interesting, isn't it? Like I really find that these type of videos are very useful it gives you an awareness because in the first time when I watched, I didn't notice that many changes. I noticed the flowers and kind of thing, but there were so many things that has changed. And it's not like they did it underneath or whatever, but when they showed, you just don't think about it because you're so into the conversation they're having rather than what's happening around that conversation. So visual people may have noticed a lot more, and auditory people would have listened a lot more. So, so again, that gave me a different awareness when I was showing it to my friends. Yeah. So next week, what we're going to talk about is it's going to be on self-management, and we are definitely going to talk about some goal setting and workload management. And don't we all have a huge workload? So how many of you here are working and doing your HDR, or are you doing HDR full-time and no work? And so how many of you are in that situation? So next week it will be so there will be tasks. The week 3 will be where some of you have chosen with thing that when I asked you the percentage, the poll, and it was interesting to see that the values was only 2%. So we're going to do value solicitation in week 3, and you will be amazed and shocked to see why we do certain things that we do and why we don't do certain things that we want to do. And so it will be a very interesting journey there in week 3. A lot of people found that very powerful week. So week 3, I'm going to warn you ahead that it's a lot of work, and it is going to be a mind opening. Okay. It's going to be thought provoking and mind opening session in week 3. So I'm just giving you a heads up there. I have just retired from full-time work, and now, yes, Julie, I remember reading I retired to do PhD. Oh, nice. I studied full-time whilst I had my own business. Ah, I know. So for me, I have business, I have work, and I'm running my last few laps of my PhD. So it's not fun. And I'm doing this as well. And, but it's just that I think it's a matter of having goals, having the big why, and working towards it and using the different energy, whenever I need that works for me. At one point, I had sessional academic, my MPhil work, and SEF HDR Society Club at the same time. Yeah, it can be quite full on. Yes, but it is how you balance things. Sometimes I'd rather be busy than bored. So and so in that way, I like to be busy doing different things. And I'm kind of like, I don't like doing just PhD all day. So I like to have my days divided into different things as well. So thank you all for coming. I really, really appreciate your presence. And I wish we can have more talks, like, if you can unmute yourself and have chats, ask me questions, or, type away as well, which is fine. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next session. And, if you know anyone else in in the group, get to know each other, comment on each other's comments. Like when people are discussing things, it's not about just telling me what you think and me replying. It's about you guys having conversations as well. So the knowledge is truly acquired only when you implement it. And having these discussions will give you that, the urge to wanting to do more and learning more and applying it even more. I was working 12 to 14 hours a day, but now I'll get PhD for the same workload. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. All right. So thank you all, and I'll see you all next week, the same time, same day, and we'll be talking about self-management. And I'll be giving you some extra tips there too. So let me know, and feel free to email me if you have any questions or anything that you want to discuss personally. I'm more than happy to share. Okay? Thank you.